Palmer lifting one in more. Oh, what a save! Anthony Patterson to the rescue for Sunderland. Brooks has found a way through. Patterson stops it.
Hello and welcome to Black Cats Chat, the international fans podcast for Sunlun FC. My name is Lee Thurkel. I'm from the Bilbao Black Cats, and we're back for part two of this special promotion podcast because we were here on the other night with Sean and who else was there? Gavin, there was Jeff, and I can't remember who else was on. There was someone else as well, but I've forgotten who it is. So yeah, we had a lot of people. Tonight we've got two more guests. We've got Paul. Paul is in Barcelona. Paul was at the match with me at Wembley last weekend. Paul, how are you, mate?
All right, Lee. Good to see you. Thanks for having us on. Yeah, all good here. Still watching replays on a daily basis. That'll probably continue all summer.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've also got on the other side of the Atlantic, we've got Jonathan. Jonathan is in Canada. He's in Edmonton. Jonathan, how are you, my friend?
I'm doing very well. It was a good weekend, and like you said, I've probably been consuming so much Sunderland content this week. It's not even funny. I was in fact listening to a podcast before I got on this call, so it's just unbelievable.
Yeah, I mean, Jonathan, I'm going to start with you because the match kicked off 3:00 England time. Where you are in Canada, that's 8 a.m. Did you sleep that night before?
I did because I worked the day before, obviously, and I woke up, I think around, I want to say 6 a.m. Not willingly, but I did, and then so by the time the game started, I'd been awake for a while, but it's an early start. Let's just put it that way. But yeah, and of course, nobody in my house is awake but me. Nobody cares about the game but me. So it's like I have to mitigate everything. So that's fun.
Yeah, and I mean, were you on the beers at that time in the morning, 8:00 in the morning, or were you just cracking the coffee out?
No. Yeah, it was more like I still had stuff to do later that day. I couldn't be drinking. My wife would be after me about that idea. But I know there were people that were in pubs in and around Canada for sure. I know there were some in the States as well. But yeah, we don't have a group here. There's a group a couple hours south of me, but there's not one here. So there's not really an obvious place to go. But yeah, there was definitely people out and about because I saw photos of people in Toronto and Calgary and places like that in Canada that were definitely celebrating.
Yeah, and
definitely watching.
Some of those members were actually at Wembley Stadium with us.
Yeah, I'm sure they were. I would love to have been.
Yeah, I think there was Justin was there, Martin was there, Rebecca, who I think is in Calgary, was there, and obviously a lot of them from down south as well, the States. Right, well, before we continue, it was actually Pete. Pete was on the podcast. Now, if I don't mention Pete, well, you're going to get upset at me. So Pete was on as well, along with Sean, Gavin, and Jeff the other day. And Pete's a great lad. Right, Paul, you were there as well. You got an early morning flight, much earlier than me from Barcelona.
Yeah.
Did you sleep the night before? Or just
I was gonna get a flight about the same time as yours, but I just and then I started thinking, well, what if it's delayed 2 hours? I was doing the maths and thinking I could miss kickoff. So in the end, I got a flight at 7:10 because of the hour. You go back an hour to get to the UK, so that meant that I was landing at 8:30. So I had loads of time. First Sunderland shirt I saw was on at the gate to get on the flight. There was another Sunderland fan going over, and that was the first of even just getting into central London before going anywhere near Wembley. Just Sunderland shirts everywhere. I think it was probably, I'd honestly say, 20 Sunderland shirts for every one Sheffield United shirt I saw, even in central London. I don't know how. I mean, I know we had probably a bit more fans than them in the stadium, but not much more. I don't know. It's just the Sunderland fans just everywhere. It felt like it was a Sunderland takeover again. I would have loved to have gone the day before, actually, but I've got a young kid here and I could only really get one night away. So yeah, went at the crack of dawn Saturday morning. Got to London nice and early. Went to the centre, checked in to the place I was staying, and then like just leisurely made my way late morning, kind of north. Had a fry up, and then yeah, went to the probably around 12ish. Got to the what's the pub near Wembley called the Green Man? Is it called? Yeah, so I went to the Green Man. God, it was it was absolutely heaving. To the point where I was on my own. I went and then I met up with my brother, but at this point I was on my own. But I thought I got to the front of the queue after just this pub was like packed like sardines. So got to the bar after having been in the queuing for like 20 minutes and thought I can't just order one pint here. I can't do this queue. I can't do this queue again. So yeah, I had to get multiple, and then and then I was quite merry for the rest of the walk downhill back to Wembley after that. But yeah, it was brilliant atmosphere. I mean, like, you know, I was there for the Wickham match as well. I was there for the Charlton match as well. And I don't know, it felt until, well, I guess we'll talk about the match in a bit, but it was another one of those occasions where you kind of felt this is going to be our day. And then as soon as the match kicked off, like straight away, you're thinking, hold on a minute, this is not our day at all. This is going completely pear-shaped. But yeah, that was my morning.
Yeah, no, and John, he makes a good point there, Paul, but he says that he wasn't really kind of nervous. He was quite confident. I mean, I have to admit that I was quietly confident as well. And that's unusual for me because I'm probably quite pessimistic. But like the Wickham final, I was there as well at Wembley, and I was confident for that. And this time as well, I was quite confident because based on the results, listen, they finished like 14 points ahead of us. But I got hope from knowing how we play. How we played against them in both games, that we got beat 1-0 and we won 2-1. And I thought like Chris Wilder, I think it's more emotional for him because he's a Sheffield boy. I think he might lose it. So I was kind of confident. I don't know, were you confident we could do it?
How should I say this? Going into the playoff, I had no confidence. I just assumed that it was a bit much for them this year, and I think kept that mentality, which I think sort of acted as kind of a buffer to like what was going on, because then what happened was great because it was all positive, at that point. But going into the game on Saturday, I had very little expectations about what was going to happen because I just didn't know, I don't know how good, like, I didn't think Sheffield United was like leagues better than us. And I didn't think that the team couldn't face up to them and go man on man against them, right? Yeah. But at the same time, it was like, if they lost, I wouldn't be like in my, crying about it and regretting everything, like I'm sure a lot of Sheffield fans were doing at the end of the game. Like, well, I know they were because I saw enough stuff on social media about it, and yet it's interesting to kind of see like most of the neutral supporters were in our corner. So it was kind of funny because there was like that. Everybody was positive about us, including us. And that was a really surprising event, especially after what normally we're kind of like, because I find that the fans are fairly, I wouldn't say, well, and this is a broad generalization, but the one thing I've noticed being away from most of the fan base is I hear a lot of social media stuff, and it's always, how social media can be quite negative.
Toxic.
Yeah, and complaining about everything and everyone, and every player's terrible, and blah 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 blah.
The most nervous I was when we equalised, because before that, even at the start of the game, when things were going badly, I was just gutted. I was just thinking it was just such a shame that for the occasion, like so many fans there, and after the players, after the Coventry second leg, and some of the players, just giving everything, and just felt just gutted. But I wasn't kind of nervous. I was just gutted. And then when we equalised, then I was just a bag of nerves, because I guess it's like it's the hope I can't stand. Like at that point, suddenly it's like we're the better team here. We've equalised. I'll be absolutely devastated. I'll be devastated now, losing it. So at that point, I was. That's when the nerves like really kicked in. But at that point, we were like just playing so well.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry.
No, go on, Jonathan. What are you going to say, son?
Oh, I was just going to say, for me, that's the funny part too. Like when the second goal was disallowed, it kind of galvanized that, oh, actually we could win this, because up until then I was kind of like, oh, I think we're just going to get pounded and it's going to be a long, long day.
That,
So
that VAR decision. Sorry, Jonathan.
yeah, no, go ahead, go ahead.
I was going to say that VAR decision was that was the turning point, wasn't it? Like, I know people saying it was a game of two halves, but the second part of the first half, the last whatever 10 minutes it was, we were the better team then as well. It was, for me, it was the VAR decision when after that it was like the Sunderland players thought, we basically have got a second life here, and we've got to really make it count. And the Sheffield United players just seemed to kind of sit off at that point.
My thought process from watching it on television is that you could tell that the crowd was back in after sort of the devastation of what was going on all of a sudden, and I think that helped the players because it kind of got them focused better. So that was something I noticed, is that the while it was, there wasn't a lot of chances and there wasn't a lot going perfectly right to kind of set up, shot after shot after shot or something like that, you could definitely tell that the entire tilt of the game had changed. I will say, until the substitutions around, what was it, 73, 74 minutes, it wasn't fully switched. And as soon as that happened, it was like a light switch got turned on. It was almost like we went from being, the Sunderland of like the last half of the season to the Sunderland of the first 3 games of the season or 10 games of the season, where we were just pushing and pushing and pushing and aggressive. And that just changed the entire game. Like I wish they would do it more, to be honest with you, because I think the team could be, well, in the championship, I should clarify, they could, wipe the floor with a lot of teams if they would just do that more. I think it's going to be a whole different measure in the Premier League, but in the championship, yeah, for sure. But in the Premier League, yeah, I think it's going to be 5 at the back and hope for your best.
Yeah.
You mentioned like the crowd, and it was well, Lee, you were there as well. Like, it was in the second half, the atmosphere was like so positive and was building, and like even before we equalised, like the crowd like really believed and were just really pushing the team forward. And that's like when I started thinking, we've actually got a chance here. Suddenly, they were getting nervous, we were on top, and the fans were like the 12th man.
Oh, listen, we've talked about that disallowed goal, right? So we may as well continue talking about it. But for me, that was huge, because as soon as they scored that, like, offside didn't even cross my mind. And I just basically come to terms with, that's it. That's game over. And I accepted it. It was just so easy to accept. But when they said it's being looked at for VAR and then the referee gets called over, that just, like, I don't know, it's like as if my soul just came back from the sky and came back in my body. And all of a sudden I just let out this comment, yeah, and I think that really did bring the hope back. But Paul, at the start of the match, I mean, as you mentioned, like, you were quite confident at the start of the match, but after 1 minute, it could have been much different had it not been for an Anthony Patterson worldie.
That save was probably the best save I've seen. Oh, like live. I can't remember. We've had some good keepers and some good saves. I think Gordon made like a brilliant one, didn't he, a few years ago? But that was just absolutely incredible. When Moore headed it, I wasn't even. It was just, that was it. It was a goal. Just waiting for the net to bulge and waiting for the crowd to go wild at the other end of the ground. It was. I didn't even think it was even savable. And then he somehow clawed it. It was almost like behind him when he got his hand to it, like Gordon Banks save.
Yeah.
And I couldn't believe it. He'd actually saved it. It was amazing save.
It was, and I mean, Jonathan, Luke O'Nien sadly got injured at that moment. I honestly didn't understand how he got injured, but I remember Paul just like looking at me and he was saying like, "This is bad." And I was like, "Oh shit!" And then obviously you see Luke O'Nien going off, and if there's one player that obviously didn't deserve that, it's definitely Luke O'Nien, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, this is. I think I said it on social media not long ago. It's like Mr. Sunderland going down, and I know there are other players that are actually from Sunderland on the team, but I mean, this is a guy who was with us in League One and has been with the team basically since they got relegated down there almost. And so you never want the guy who's sort of the talisman of the team to not be able to play. That's always something that's kind of, you don't want to see. And you could tell it was still very meaningful for him even after the fact, because when we scored, he was like one of the first people down there, which I don't know how he got down there that quickly, to be perfectly frank. And so he was still there, still a part of everything, which was great. But yeah, it's scary when you see players going down that you're like, no, we kind of need that one.
Yeah.
But Meffam came in and played very well. So with the exception of, I think, the first goal, I think he did pretty well.
Yeah, and on that first goal, Paul, I mean, I just nipped off to the toilet because I drank like 2 pints quickly before the match. And I think there was like a little pause in play for something, and I thought, okay, now's a good time to go to the toilet. And then the next thing that happens is I'm coming down the steps back to my seat, and I see the counter attack, and I thought, shit, 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 oh shit. And now I've got to walk across people as they've just scored, and I'm getting like, for example, oh fucking hell, man, like fucking get past man, hurry up, man. I was like, sorry, but it was a bit frustrating that we conceded that goal, didn't we, from a
I think that was like
from our corner.
that was the story of your Wembley experience. You drink
Oh,
too many pints and too long in the toilets. Yeah, it was. To be fair though, it was a brilliant counter attack. So it was. Yeah, obviously to concede a goal from your own corner, you're going to say it's and it was bad defending. I think Meffam could have fouled Hamer on the halfway line. He had a chance to foul him, like get a yellow card, and he didn't. And as soon as he didn't foul him, then Hamer was away so quick. And then he managed to like look up and put a perfect little cross through ball through to Campbell, and then it was a really good finish as well.
I mean that is like a Premier League level counter attack and move and finish. I thought it
So
was
I think
really good.
The reason why, like at the start, I was like so gutted was because and thinking we're going to lose. It wasn't just that we started, we were like shaky. It was they were so good, so impressive. Not necessarily in the all-round play, but just when the ball went up, Moore just looked like he was going to win absolutely everything all day. Campbell looks really sharp, and you're just thinking we're not going to be able to. We couldn't handle them. The first 10 minutes, they just ran us ragged, like just long balls, diagonal balls that like for a normal strike, if it was a normal championship striker, it would just be not a problem. But with their front players, they were just causing absolute havoc. So you're just thinking we're just not going to be able to handle them all day. The thing with 09 going off, even though I was gutted for him personally, because I just like everyone else, I love him, like everyone else does. But I was gutted for him personally. Actually, even though he's been a brilliant player for us this season, we've having Metham as the third choice and someone to come in. I mean, that's like a brilliant backup. So you're thinking if anyone was going to get injured so early, it's not too bad for it to be 09 to be able to bring in someone as good as Metham. And so when talking about what was the difference in getting promoted, things like that, the strength in depth to have the three centre backs that good. Metham could come in, and his passing obviously isn't as good as 09. We missed that. We missed the 09's passing out from the back, but in the area he's strong and he's a really good defender. But yeah, that goal he would have been kicking himself to have not brought down Hamer on the counter attack, and it was a brilliant goal, and it'd been coming as well. It wasn't like a counter attack where you thought we've just been robbed on the counter attack. It was almost they were all over us, and then we had our first corner thinking, right, we're going to get back into it, and then they scored, and then you're thinking, this is going to be a long day.
Yeah, I mean, Jonathan, listen, we mentioned there 09 and Mepham for that goal. Listen, if 09 had been on the pitch, we've seen 09 kiss an opposing player, piggyback another player, handball in the middle of the pitch. I reckon he would have pulled Hamer's shorts down in that situation.
Yeah, I mean, he is kind of Mr. Yellow Card sometimes with his behavior, and he gets away with it a lot of times. So that'll be interesting to see what happens next year. But yeah, he's definitely a interesting person to follow in that regard. But you're right about the strength and depth. I think there's something about having, and it's only in certain key positions because not everybody. I mean, our strikers are pretty thin after you get past the first two. But like there is some good ones where they haven't. But you look at Roberts coming on, who on this podcast have not been terribly positive about previously, and I would argue, was one of the key points of changing the game. Like his ability to escape and speed just blew Sheffield United away. The other thing I would say too is when they scored, it was like, okay, so this is 64 million versus 8 million, and you could see the difference because of that. And then, yeah, as time went on, it obviously changed. But for the first little bit, it was like, okay, so this is just gonna be a long day, and we're gonna watch them basically counterattack and beat us. The one thing that's kind of funny though is if you have a team that's only counterattacking and you're playing against another team who's basically only counterattacking, if you can't switch gears, then all of a sudden that leads to what happened. Like that's one thing I will say about Sunderland is they switched gears. I didn't think Sheffield switched gears at all. I thought they played very negatively for some of it in a way that they shouldn't be. They shouldn't have been afraid of Sunderland. And yet I felt like at times they were.
Yeah.
The Sheffield United fans you must have been gutted because the first, 20 minutes or whatever it was, they looked so much stronger than us. And then it was almost like they'd just let us back into the match. I think like they'd be absolutely fuming. And you're talking about the money, the difference in the how much the teams cost. They had Brereton Diaz on the bench, Cannon on the bench, unbelievably like strong squad to lose the game and not just lose the game, to be like basically outplayed for most of the match, having started that first 20 minutes. Obviously, give Sunlun loads of credit as well. But I'm sure their fans would be thinking, how did we allow that to happen?
Yeah, I think.
Oh yeah, one other thing, sorry, Lee. Just
go
on the Methven point, it's amazing to think, and the strength in depth. If the first few months of the season, our two best players were, if I remember rightly, Methven and Isidore, and neither of them started at the final. It just shows that like how it wasn't just 11 players. We had a squad.
No, absolutely. On that though, like for example, I think like for the first 35 minutes until they had this slow goal, they kind of played us at our own game. Because we've been seeing recently that we've been like doing the low block and the counter attack, and it's been a bit frustrating sometimes. I thought their defensive shape was absolutely outstanding for that because like every time we got the ball, we just didn't know what to do with it. We had so much possession. It was like basically go to the right, Riggs too tight to the touchline. He's got no space. Go in the middle. There's no space. I was like, Jesus Christ, I can't see us getting through here. But obviously, I think that roar when the goal got disallowed, that just like changed the thing. And I think like I don't know, maybe it's like Sheffield United over celebrate a little bit and they didn't anticipate the offside and it just like it took the wind out, didn't it? I think. But yeah, second half then, Jonathan. We came back into it. There was an early sub. I think it was like around 60 minutes. I think or 65 minutes. Chris Rigg went off. Didn't have his best game, but he was out of position on the right wing, and he's also 17 years old. I think it made sense to put him in because Patrick Roberts was rumored to have like a calf injury. But yeah, you could see instantly when he came on, Jonathan, that he got the ball and he wanted to run at them.
Yeah, and I think the other thing is too, so if you're talking Rig or Dan Neil, there was especially Rig, I think it like you said, he's still a kid. I mean, he hasn't even got to, he isn't even an adult yet. So it's expecting a lot for him to carry the team in that point. And I think it was wise to actually maybe shift him out if you're seeing somebody who's kind of a bit overawed in the game or is getting handled like he was. I think just changing that dynamic and was enough to start turning the tide of the game because all of a sudden, it wasn't a case of we'd get to about midfield and then get overwhelmed and then push back and then we'd do it all again over and over and over again, which is where all the possession was coming in. We weren't making any progress in their end, and if we did, it didn't get anywhere near the net. And so you have that happening, and then you have like people, the speed that we brought on at that point when we brought on Roberts and we brought on Isidore and then we brought on Watson, and it just totally changed the ability to get forward. And I think one of the dynamics with Sheffield is because they made changes, but they were happening, I think, a bit too slowly. They didn't really have all that strength and depth that we talked about suddenly didn't matter because the guys that were on the field were already tired. And so I think it kind of started to turn the tide just having that, even that little bit of time when they didn't shift quickly enough to actually start to turn things over and and the team started to say, okay, we can make progress and we can get through. And I think that's when fan belief, I mean, I wasn't there, I can't tell you, but just from what I could see, continued to really jump up to another level at that point. It seemed to get a lot louder. One thing I will say through the broadcast, so I'm watching the broadcast through various different people. So I don't even know if it was Sky's broadcast that we were watching, if it was beIN Sports broadcast or who the heck it was. But it always seemed like the Sheffield End fans, even I know there wasn't as many of them as Sunderland, having watched later, they're they were definitely quiet compared to the Sunderland fans. Sunderland fans were loud all the time, and you could always hear the chants, and you always knew that they were there. And I think that, and I said it already, I think that made a difference in the game, but it was something that was actually standing out on a broadcast. So I don't know what it was like for you guys in the stadium, but
It, fe-
from
it,
the
f-
aspect
it
of
felt the
that.
same. It felt the same. I think like that. We only heard them when they scored, really, didn't we, Paul?
Mm.
Yeah, like when they were on top in the first 20 minutes, but then as we got into the game, they were obviously thinking, what what is going on here? The second half, not a peep.
Yeah,
And
and
I wonder how much that was nerves, right? Because they hadn't, what, 10 times they've been to Wembley and they hadn't won. So I'm
that's
wondering
right.
if it was like, oh God, here we go again, sort of thing.
Well, I think we know it as Sunderland fans, where it's quiet in the Sunderland end when you just know that the opposition's on top and you know a goal's coming, uh, and sometimes it's hard, isn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
and I think as well, I think like being third place and finishing 14 points, there must be some expectation that the pressure as well that we need to get this done, and I think that adds a lot of pressure. So we went in as the underdogs, and I think that helped us. And I think the build up as well during the week, the club's social media wasn't going overboard with the content as we had in previous years, so they were kind of keeping it down, which I thought was a good thing as well. Paul, I don't know if you probably won't. You might not know about this, but 1937, when we won the FA Cup, I don't know if you know the story about a fan that smuggled in a black cat for good luck against
Oh,
Preston,
yeah.
and we actually won the match. I think someone must have smuggled in a couple of black cats on Saturday because we did ride our luck at times, especially with that Patterson save in the first half, and he made another great save in the second half after a bit of a howler from Dennis Cirkin. I mean, Pato was diving the wrong way, but he just like stretched his foot out, and that was another key point, wasn't it?
Yeah, I missed that. I think like we were at the other end of the ground, and I think the players were like in the way of the balls. We couldn't really. I personally couldn't really see what had happened. They were like closing in on the goal, and the next thing I know, it had been cleared. And it was only when I saw the replay I realised that he actually had got basically one-on-one clear shot at goal, and it was a brilliant save by Patterson. Um, when looking at the replay, it looks like the ball kind of rolled down his arm a bit before he shot. So I think if he'd scored, it probably would have been another one ruled out for VAR probably. But still, I mean, yeah, take nothing away from Patterson. It was another brilliant save.
Yep. And then Jonathan, on come the subs, as we mentioned before. I thought it was very, very brave from Lebris to one bring on, take off Dan Neil, like your team captain.
Hmm.
Listen, he didn't have the best of games. He acknowledged that. I think he said he was like basically he was feeling a lot of cramp. He didn't feel tired, he just felt a lot of cramp. Again, probably the pressure.
Hmm.
But to take off your captain when you're losing 1-0, what it's like 20 minutes, 25 minutes to go, and then bring on an 18-year-old who has had like a very up and down season. No, but he's had the highs and the lows because he came into the team, did well, scored a couple of goals, got injured, came back. All of a sudden, he's leaving to Brighton. Announced in the middle of the season, he gets criticism. He plays the three following matches after it's announced that he's leaving, and he plays very, very poorly. You can tell that it affected him. A lot of negativity on social media. I mean, I'm going to be admitting, and I was one of them. I didn't think he was going to play for us again. But Lebris, he took a gamble, didn't he? He took a gamble, and he had to take a gamble because we needed a goal.
Yeah. I think it's one of those situations where a manager has a feeling for the team, right? And they can see who's practicing well, who's training in training, who's doing the basics, who's maybe showing that slight bit of pace that you need right then. Maybe the guy that you would have normally brought on in this instance wasn't really up for it the way you hoped they would be, or whatever the reasoning was. And I think that's why I like Labrie so much, is because he's able to kind of tune out the public. As so often managers will be like, "Oh, I got to defend my guy. I got to do this. I got to do that," and you do to an extent. But I think at the same time, being able to just say, "No, no, no, I'm going to go with the person who's probably given us the best shot to win," rather than focusing in on, oh, he steps on that field and everybody starts booing him or something. Like, at the end of the day, it is a learning experience for Tommy, because at the end, now by the way, that fans are going to be like this. Like, it happens in the Premier League.
Mhm.
Look at Alexander Arnold. I mean, that whole business in Liverpool is exact same situation, right?
Mhm.
So you have so much of that going on. I think it's going to be a learning lesson for him, but I think as well, hopefully, I think we kind of learn from it ourselves, because I think the fan base kind of needs to just be like a little bit like, okay, hang on a second, rather than like, you traitor, blah, 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 and screaming at him. I get being annoyed and mad that that they've announced their transfer out like that. And maybe on both sides, it would have been better if it had waited to the end of the season and then you can do something like that. But same, like, look at Job, for example. But I think at the same time, it doesn't serve the team to have this guy who could still be important to your team and have him not contribute, because, he's been shattered by public opinion. And when it's a local kid, it's a lot more, you know and I can use a comparison even in Canada, because the team I cheer for in hockey, the other side of this, has a kid who's playing on the team who also is local, and he gets ragged on all the time, and it's like, oh my goodness. Now he's an older guy, so it's a little bit easier to kind of stomach that stuff, but it is one of those things where you're like, maybe lay off the guy just because he's local. He maybe isn't shouldn't just be a target of your ire all the time. But
You could tell it
yeah,
affected some of the other players as well. Rig in his post match interviews, you could tell he
yeah.
was like he'd been impacted by like the stick that Watson had been getting.
Well, yeah, because I mean, Riggs probably someone who could go if things go a certain way. And he's the same situation. He's a young guy. He's on the team. He's been in the team forever. It is his team, both as a fan and as a player. And then to have the fans turn on you, it's not ideal for any means. And I don't know. I get very annoyed with it, because I just feel like we need to be a little cognizant of the fact that they are people, and if you start to get on them that hard, and then you sit there and it'll unless they've got a Roy Keane sort of mentality, it's just going to roll.
Yeah.
And most people don't have a Roy Keane mentality.
I think as well, the fact that he almost left in the January window on the last day to Brighton, but it fell through because we couldn't get a replacement. I think fans kind of anticipated that he was going to leave eventually, probably
Yeah.
at the following summer. But I think
Hmm.
the thing that just annoyed people was that, why did they get announced at that moment? Because there was still
Yeah.
so much to play for. And I think,
Yeah.
and like, listen, there's been other podcasts that have mentioned that at the time, watch him go and score the winner at Wembley, and
Mhm.
that's exactly what he did. But anyway,
Yeah, you should have
Paul.
listened to if he'd listened to Black Cat's chat at the time, he would have heard us saying nothing wrong with having him in the team. He's got the quality to score the winner at Wembley. Yeah, exactly. By the way, I was just when Jonathan was talking, right? So I was thinking about these the subs that we brought on, right? Metham, Roberts, Watson, Isidore, and then Hilda as well. Alan
Mhm.
Brown, who's no journeyman, not a slouch on the bench, who didn't come on. I've googled the team from this. This was the team that lost at home to Hull just over a year ago. This is the bench: Pembele, Semedo, Barr, Burstow, Bennett, Oshish, Triantis, Bishop, Rigg. And at that point, Rigg was 13 or whatever he was. So like, the difference between to go from the reason why someone like Rusin or Callum Styles wasn't on the bench is because they were in the team. They were in the first 11.
Yeah.
So to go from that to a team where you've got those subs sat on the bench to bring on shows that like we've just the improvement in the quality of plays we've had.
But there was a lot of B's in there, Paul. So there's a lot of bullshit, isn't it? A lot of bullshit. Bar,
Maybe
Bennett,
that's the criteria for the recruitment.
Probably the majority of them are not here anymore, apart from Rigg and I don't know who else. So they've all probably been shipped out.
Yeah.
But anyway, listen, Paul. On that goal, then, I mean, I didn't appreciate at the time, just like the build-up, no, like from the touch from Job, the little flick from Watson, the instant pass from Lefebvre. Because normally players might try and hold on to the ball a bit longer, but Lefebvre just like got the ball, played it in front of Roberts, and then that pass from Roberts. Oh, it was just beautiful.
At the time, I was it looked like he'd underhit it. Like when it left his foot, I remember thinking, I thought he'd messed it up. I thought the chance had gone, and then the defender kind of was like wrong-footed, and it found its way through. Now someone said that out of all the replays I've watched, I haven't actually seen. I've seen everything apart from Roberts' eyes when he does this pass, because apparently when he plays the pass, he's looking in the other direction.
Really?
And he actually like wrong foots the defender by looking like he's going to pass it one way and then passes it through to Mayenda instead. So I'm giving and if he's done that, which apparently he has, then that's like unbelievable quality, and that's why the defender was kind of turned the wrong way, and it went perfectly into Mayenda's path.
Yeah, I mean, Jonathan, Mayenda is predominantly left-footed, but to take the ball on your left foot as you're going away from goal, and then to strike it like that on your weaker foot, first touch, that's some composure and some confidence.
Yeah. It's one of those things where it's like, I think if we'd have stayed in the championship, he's probably gone, sort of level of thing. I hope he stays for a long time for Sunderland, because I think he's got a lot of potential, and just that goal when he hit that thing and it looked like it was just a missile was unbelievable. And it was like you say, it's always interesting to see somebody on their weak foot being able to just pump the ball like that, because you're not expecting them to do that. And I know I was listening to one of the announcers talk about this after the game, where he said, he kept seeing him with it on his right foot, and he's like, shoot it. And then he like, oh, never mind. And, for me, that would be kind of the same thing. I mean, it's harder to see on the television, I think, that's going on because of the angle, but it was definitely a pretty nice blast right in the top.
Yeah, unstoppable. I mean, you put 2 or 3 keepers in there, they wouldn't stop that. Paul, I mean, as soon as I saw Mayenda kind of, because we had a very kind of good view, didn't we, of the whole build-up of the play, we were kind of above it. As soon as Roberts picked up the ball and I saw Mayenda peel off, I was like, play him through, pass it. And as soon as he got the ball, it just felt that he was going to score, wasn't it?
Yeah, the only thing I'd say, and this is all podcast is all about different. It's all about different opinions, isn't it? I think even though it was a brilliant finish, and Watson's was also a brilliant finish, I reckon both of those goals, the keeper could have stopped it, and they wouldn't have been as good saves as the one that Patterson did at the start of the match. They weren't neither. Watson's didn't hit it that hard. Mayenda's wasn't right in the top corner. I'm not saying it was like a keeper, bad mistake or anything, but just thought, these are like fine margins, and Patterson's pulled off an unbelievable save. And the keeper there is letting to that. I think he could have saved. Not there weren't mistakes, but I think he could have saved both of them with like better. If he'd moved quickly on his feet, if he'd taken like a step to the side and then dived or something, he might have stopped them. But they were both brilliant finishes still.
Yeah, I thought the Watson goal, he was caught flat-footed. Like it looked like he should have got over faster, because Watson's kick is more of a pass. I mean, he literally passed it into the net. But yeah, so I think there is a possibility he could have got to that, and he just I don't know why he stopped, but yeah, I mean, good that he did, but
Yeah,
but
He might have been slightly,
unsighted.
um, yeah, on site. I think there might have been a defender, and if
mm,
you look, and I've watched that goal probably 100 times, and he kind of jumps. He does like a little jump
yeah,
as Watson's about to shoot, and then to the point where he would normally step to the side, he's in the air. It's only like a
mhm,
couple of inches, but he's just
yeah,
slightly in the air. And the time it takes for him to come down and then move to the side, he loses like a vital second or two.
yep,
Well, listen, when Mayenda scored that goal, Jonathan, the roar was absolutely brilliant, and you felt. I mean, Paul said before that it made him feel more nervous. For me, it just gave me a massive hope, and obviously, again, you don't see the TV images, but I've watched it back, and you see at that moment, Sheffield United fans have got their head in their hands,
yeah,
and
yeah,
the players are like got the t-shirts over their head. It's it's
mm,
it's 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 kind of as if they already know what's going to happen.
yeah,
But when the 7 minutes got announced at the time at the end, the roar as well from the Sunlun fans was just immense because you knew that we could get it done within 90 minutes here. We're going to get it done in normal time.
I
Um,
was the, I mean, one of the reasons I was nervous is that I was just probably assuming that the the flow of the game since that VAR decision and we were on top was then going to get reversed again. We equalised and we were gonna then, suddenly go back into our shells and now would come on top. And like so much credit to the players, the Sunderland players, because to have the mentality of not only have we got an equaliser, we're actually going to go out and we're going to push to win this, and to be pinning Sheffield United back and being the team most likely to score for the rest of the 90 minutes was just absolutely amazing.
but I mean, Jonathan,
mhm,
it was so like back and forth because I remember Paddy Roberts picked up the ball and he drove forward, and I think he tried to come inside and he tried to win a free kick, but he didn't win a free kick. They get the ball, they play it to Kiefer Moore. Kiefer Moore like plays a poor layoff. When Tommy Watson picks up the ball, he's in loads of space. I just remember like the whole stadium went up with a huge roar, and as he takes like a couple of steps forward, it just went quiet. It went quiet, and then the moment he left his foot, you could just see behind the goals like people's mouths wide open, and then obviously the moment it hit the back of the net was just wow. So
yeah.
can you how was it for you that moment, mate? Because I mean, me and Paul could
It,
go on all night, but for you,
yeah, it was really interesting. So I'm watching it. It's 10 a.m. My wife and family are awake, and she's downstairs, and that goal goes in, and I actually stood up, and normally big cheer goes up, but I was like, oh my God, how? And then I screamed, right? Because it was like, how did that go in? How? Because it looked totally like he was going to save that, and then he didn't, obviously. And then I started to laugh, right? Because it was just so insane. And it was like at that point, I was like, yeah, we're in, we're done, it's over. And I mean, it was so funny because I don't know, because my wife's reaction was like, what are you doing? What's going on?
you're a grown man, Jonathan.
Yeah, well,
Calm
not so
yourself
much
down.
the grown man aspect. She was more confused about what I was laughing about. It's like I was just like I'm laughing because this is just not what I expected to happen. And like from the moment the goal went in from my ender till then, it was like I had totally become I changed completely from being very negative to very confident that we were going to get this back because it just looked like there was only really one team going to do it. And they but even still when it went in, it was just I was just baffled, I guess would be a kind word for it.
Mm.
And just it took ages to kind of come down from the high of just being so excited about it. So it wasn't like jump around the room and punch people and get really excited and be crazy, but it was just one of those moments where it was just
Kiss people in
yeah,
Lee's
or
case,
kiss
which I
people in
can
some cases.
being
Yeah,
sat,
yeah,
being
yeah.
stood next to him,
Oh,
I can confirm.
yeah,
Do
yeah. And
that.
I
I
bet
can't remember,
because
mate.
I saw loads like afterwards, right? I'm watching fans who are videoing things and YouTube videos of people that have put stuff up, and you can see, and you guys were there, so you know better than I do just how much everybody just broke at that moment, and people were in tears and emotionally just changed by the whole thing. And it's one of those rare moments that you can take back and say, I was there when this happened, or I saw this happen, which is just, they're so rare, I think, for fans. I just don't think people understand or appreciate them as much when they happen, because it's like, oh, well, that's, but if you've sat through years and years and years of playing, you know, Portsmouth and being in League One and watching them kick the hell out of the team every time they're going down the field, and then you get into the championship and you're like, okay, we're probably going to be stuck here for ages because, just how competitive. To get to that point and to see that goal go in and realize at that moment that it's, I don't want to say over, but that the nightmare of watching a team just die effectively, back in 2017 and get relegated twice in a row and then having to put up with what went on after that and the ownership and everything. It was just such an emotional release, even for me, miles and miles and kilometers away. It was crazy. And yeah, so then I had to go to social media because I had to talk to people that actually cared.
Well, I mean, Paul, I think we jumped up. You were sitting next to Adrian. You were speaking to Adrian in Spanish most of the game, talking about tactics. I mean,
Yeah,
I
no, I
said
did. Yeah.
I said that I wasn't nervous, but like at one point in the game, I did look down and I had like a pile of fingernails on the floor and like lying on my back, and I was like, oh shit, maybe I'm a bit nervous. But when that goal came in, it was like massive celebration. I just remember that. I don't know what went through my head, but I just like climbed up one row behind because the Bulgarian
Yeah,
lads
you
were
went
behind
off.
me.
You started. You
I went
started.
off. I went
Yeah.
off, mate. I went off. And
It
as I mentioned on the other
was time for
podcast,
a bit
mate,
of a hike.
as I mentioned in the podcast, I don't get my leg over many times these days, but like fucking getting my leg over three rows of chairs was a challenge as
These
well.
days.
Um, listen,
Uh,
I used to be an all-round athlete, mate. Now I'm just all round. Um, but like, listen, I went up behind me to the Bulgarian lads. I climbed up to the NASA lads, Justin and Sean, gave them a massive hug. And then there was one more row. There was Martin and Ian from the German Black Cats, and Ian's 72, so I know he wasn't coming down to celebrate me. So I had to go up. I looked on my leg the following day. I had like cuts and bruises from like basically getting over the seat. So I'd be a shit at 110-meter hurdles, that's for sure. Um,
I
but
was in shock. I was like Jonathan was saying. I was saying to Adrian. I remember just saying. I must have said, "No lo puedo creer." I can't believe it. Just for probably 15 minutes after the goal and 20 minutes after, when the players are still finishing their lap of honor on the pitch, I was still saying it. I just
yep.
couldn't believe it. I think just because of, it wasn't just the match. It wasn't just because we'd started so badly and Sheffield United was so much stronger. I guess it was also like the Coventry semi-final, the way we
Mm.
finished the season on a bit of a whimper. It just felt like I just was totally shocked. And then it took probably not even that day. It took like days to really sink in what's happened.
well, I remember, Paul, there's one photo. My favorite photo of the day is actually of you, right? And I'm going to show it to you now. I took this because I thought you were just like absorbed in the moment.
Yeah,
You had your hands on the rails, and it's like you started clapping like that. And I thought I'm going to take a picture because he's going to remember that for the rest of his life.
I climbed down. Yeah, you climbed up.
Yeah,
You
I
started
climbed up and you
hiking.
climbed down. Yeah.
I went the easy way. Went down to the bottom of the tier. Because I don't like, some people like leave, like, and I would just stay there until the last player's gone off the pitch. I
Mm.
mean, those they just deserve like as much applause as you could possibly give them.
Yep. Yeah. So, well, anyway, listen, there's moments that we haven't talked about, but one of them are the putting the bodies on the line, Jonathan. And I don't know if you saw the club released a tweet or a post on social media saying putting our bodies on the line. And it was like Chris Rigg tackling I think it was the second half. There was the Chris Meppen putting, and then obviously the biggest one was the Trey Hume basically lightning strike, thunderclap on Ben Burton Diaz, which like even Chris Wilder was applauding on the touchline saying, "Yep, fair play." Um, but yeah, that's the Sunlun way, isn't it? Like those type of tackles, that's what we love. We celebrate them as much as a goal, don't we?
It's that as we would describe it here, that blue collar style, right? That get dirty, get in the dirt, get yourself in there and dig in. And anytime a player is going to be willing to do that, they're going to be very popular. It's just the way that the city is, the way the fans and the supporters and just everybody has kind of looked at them. Obviously, as a mildly outsider, that's something that stood out to me from the very beginning is that Sunderland loves players like that. You know, the ones that are going to be the kind of guy you would hate if they're not on your squad, but they are the type that you need. You need those kind of guys, like someone who can be that, you know, pushing the edge of legality. I think is just one of those things that it's a trait that you have to play for this team, especially in the midfield, especially in the center backs. And it's just something you can have. You know, you can have your runabout wingers and all that as well, and they're always very popular. But yeah, if you think about some of the big names of the past that are like that and how popular they were, yeah, I mean, a guy like Trey Hume's just going to be toast of the town sort of thing.
Yeah, and he was toast of the town after the match, wasn't he, Paul? Because he downed that pint of Guinness that a fan gave him.
Yeah, that was brilliant. Yeah, like on that tackle, like three things. One, it was just a Trey Hume special. You know, he's actually he times his tackles so well, doesn't he? As well, he's like brilliant tackler. Like slide tackles are brilliant, and timed it perfectly. Second thing was it actually mattered because Brereton Diaz then went off injured. He was down for a long time, went off injured. We ended up scoring in injury time from that added on time.
And they had a player that went off. I think it was like the centre back whose name I'm not going to pronounce because I
Yeah,
can't pronounce it. But he
yeah, but
went
then
off
they
the
brought on
pitch.
someone else, didn't they? Because that was concussion. I
It
think they were allowed to bring
was.
on someone else. I think I can't.
Yes.
Um,
They had seven. They actually were able to bring on seven different players because of
right,
concussion
yeah.
issues.
And they still
But
couldn't
then
win.
the
Yeah.
third thing though is like because I think we're all happy to see the back of the EFL. But can we just have a moment of appreciation for this EFL moment where Trey Hume, Trey Hume absolutely clears out one of their best players. And as you say, Lee, you've got the manager in the background clapping. Their manager, who even appreciates, like, oh wow, what a tackle! Like that's just the EFL at its absolute best. If that was, you watch Spanish football as well, Lee. Like if that happened
They,
in Spain,
they would be up
it
in
would
arms, wouldn't
be.
they?
You can't even imagine the scenes. Like there'd be people just running around everywhere. The player would be like stretchered off. There'd be red cards for the tackler. There'd be red cards for the reaction. And it's the EFL. It's just even the opposition manager claps like, yeah, wow, what a tackle.
Brilliant. Right, we're going to wrap up in a short one because Paul, I know you got a dash. But listen, we've got two pieces of news then. So it seems that Enzo Lafie is going to sign permanently because there's an obligation to buy him for 24 million euros. We understand.
Yep.
I'm happy with that. I think he can make a big difference to our team.
He's
The other
yeah.
news, Jonathan, is Job. Obviously, you mentioned it before that a day or so later, he's been linked with a move to German football, but then there's like contradicting reports saying that Kirill Louis Dreyfus doesn't want him to leave and is going to try to get him to stay. Where do you stand on the position of Job? Would you like him to stay, or do you think it's probably time for him to move on to that next step?
So if he left, I would understand because I think he is at that position. He's right on that cusp of being basically needing that one more level to kind of become. But I, selfishly want him to stay because I think if we the key to next year is the spine of the team, right? The spine of the team is what's going to determine whether we stay up or go down. And if the spine is weak, we're going to be toast. And I think that's where you want to have as many players in the squad that are kind of the base of that spine so that you're not having to spend loads and loads and loads of money you really don't have right now on players to fill in that spine because that's a great way to get into trouble. So having him stay would be critical to survival. And then if he goes next year, you're like, well enough. I mean, at that point, it's like he's got 2 years left in his contract. Realistically, he'll want to go if he doesn't want to go already. And that would then make sense because he goes to Germany or he goes somewhere overseas. He learns a bit more, comes back, and probably ends up in one of the top six. and that's kind of how it'll work. Or he'll go to Real Madrid.
Yeah, yeah.
You
I
know,
mean, Paul, it was interesting. Like, it was it the day after, I think it was, where he put a post out on social media, which was basically a rehash of when he signed his contract extension last season. And in the statement, it says that I've re-signed again because I've got unfinished business. And then he kind
Mhm.
of like posted that along with the caption, "Job done." And that was like
Yeah,
kind of like a hint, wasn't it? I think.
yeah, an emoji of a glass of red wine, wasn't it?
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think. Yeah, I didn't really understand that, to be honest. I can't really read between the lines like you can. I was a bit confused by that cryptic post, but I think I obviously hope he stays. He's got like massive potential. Um, at the end, money talks, and if we get a brilliant offer and he wants to leave, then he'll go, and he'll leave with amazing memories. From It's an interesting one from his point of view, and his his family and advisors. I mean, they're just gonna. The only thing they're thinking about is what move is going to make him the best player when he's 25 or
Exactly.
whatever,
What's best for him?
and what's for his development. Not thinking of next year, but thinking of like years in the future.
yeah.
And my worry is that even though the Premier League is the best league he can play in, and he would probably start in the Sunderland team, is it good for his development to be in a team that's losing most games, which we will do, even if we have a good season? Let's face it, we're going to lose most games.
Yeah.
Playing, like Jonathan said before, which it will be, like five at the back, low block, really defensive. Like, is that environment the best thing for his development when he could play in the Bundesliga and be like one of the better players in a team that's winning most matches? At the end of the day, that's the decision that him and his family and team are gonna make. Hopefully, they think Sunderland's a great place for him to be, but if not, then I mean he's leaving on a massive high, isn't he?
Yeah,
I think the
absolutely.
advantage he's going to have, sorry, is just that he is. I think everybody acknowledges that it's a temporary situation. So I think from a supporter standpoint, everybody's like, well, if you go, you go. We're not going to complain. Whereas other people, it's a bit more of an issue, right? But I kind of agree with you. I think it's difficult because, like you say, even if I guess it just comes down to if you're the management of Sunderland, can you convince him that you're going to spend the type of money that the team's going to need in order to compete? And are you going to bring in the right set of players? Because if you're not, then yeah, if I'm his advisor, I'm like, yeah, you got to go. It makes no sense to stay here now. You've done everything you can for the team. It's time to move on before you get, like you say, get stuck playing, you know, on a team that's just losing, and then everybody, right now your value's the highest it's probably going to be if we go right back down. So, it makes sense. But at the same time, if Sunderland can convince him that yes, we have the investment, we have the understanding, we have the people in place that understand how to get the best out of these players, then you might be able to convince him to stay. If
Yeah,
you can be the next Brentford instead of the next Southampton, then you're probably got a chance to convince him that yeah, it's worthwhile. We could, maybe in 3 years' time we're competing with European places and things like that. If you can get to that stage, it's a lot easier to convince players to stick around than it is to say, "Oh, would you like to be a near relegation or relegation team for the rest, or worse yet, a yo-yo team for the rest of whatever?" At that point, yeah, no, I would totally support him going at that stage. Like, there's no point sticking around
I
just to
mean,
be in that situation. You just
yeah,
have to get the right amount of money. The team has to get the enough money brought in from the sale to make it worthwhile. And I would put the money as high as I can and just make them pay. Because if you really want him badly, we need to get Premier League money, not League One money.
yeah. No, no, and what he's under contract until 2028, so he's still got 3 years left in his deal. So,
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
Paul, I mean, one of the things that could make him stay is the windfall payment of 220 million quid to go up. I mean, that's the highest the championship team from the playoff has ever had. So that does put us in a very good position to be able to recruit top players for the Premier League to give us that chance of staying up.
Yeah, it's interesting that he's kind of moved so quickly after the playoff final to he's been over in Germany, I think, hasn't he? I think he actually travelled over there. because he could wait and see what we do, how we spend the money before making a decision. It'd be interesting to see like how fast he makes the decision. But yeah, presumably that will be in his calculations: is what will he be starting? Who are the players around him? Have we got a realistic chance of staying up? What kind of football will we be playing? What kind of role will he have? And at the moment, it's still, we don't really know, do we? Apart from, as you say, we've got a lot of money, a lot of potential to spend.
Yep. And Jonathan, on that note, with the money, 220 million, I think we do have the right people in the right places to use that money sensibly, because Kirill Louis-Dreyfus, Christian Speakman, they came in, 2020 or 2020, 2021, and they did promise that there's a 5-year plan, and they've done it in 4. So
Yep.
huge credit goes to them.
Yeah.
For being bold, for being bold, for saying
Yep.
out loud, because normally when you make a promise like that in public, it normally bites you in the ass, doesn't it? But they came out with it, and they've done it in 4, so hats off to them.
Yeah, and I'm sure it's a surprise to them as much as it is to us. Because I'm sure the reason why they said 5 is because they figured this would be the year they get into the playoff mix again, and then next year would be the one where they're like fighting for proper automatic promotion places. But like, I look at the team. I have confidence in the way they're thinking. Labrie seems to have a very good understanding, and because of coaching at so many different locations in Europe, seems to have linkages. I mean, we got Lefebvre because of his linkages to Labrie. I think that helps out as well, because then he can pull players in that maybe, the rest of the Premier League's like, I wouldn't say they're not looking at, but maybe they haven't got their full eye on the kid. There's a player out of France that sounds interesting. I've heard suggested as a Sunderland possible target, that may not have been on the list because he's on a team that got relegated, but he was like their best player. I watched a few of the games he was in, and it's like he's passing it and everybody's missing. Like he's just coming in, he's making all these great plays, and nobody's getting the pass and putting it in the net. And he's their striker. Like you're like, what? So I think there's the other thing about this 220 million that I want to point out is that how many other teams in the championship are going to come up and have a 40+ thousand seat stadium, an international fan base that are willing to spend money with merch and everything else as much as Sunderland does? Because I think Sunderland's one of the bigger championship before teams as far as international audience. I mean, outside of Wrexham, obviously, currently, but like that, I think in and of itself will be very helpful to continue to bring more money in, because now everybody's excited. Everybody's going to go out and buy the new shirt, the new this, the new that. I mean, hell, I've already taken a look at about my scarf I want to buy. So you've got that kind of thing, and I think the excitement of getting into the Premier League so unexpectedly will also drive a bit of it too, right? And you're going to have much of that running around, and I think there's money to be got. It just comes down to you got to stay up, and the only way you're going to do that is beat everybody around you. It would be nice if you take out Newcastle. I think we all admit that.
Yeah.
But if you can beat all these teams like the Wolves and that, at least do that, or at least win most of your home games, that would be helpful too.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we used to do that. We used to beat Chelsea at home. We used to beat Arsenal at home. We used to beat Man U at home. So, and that was with players that weren't much better than what we got now.
I saw us beat Chelsea 4-1 at home.
Yeah.
Phillips scored a worldie. Paul, I want to give you final word on Régis Lebris. Now, listen, people on social media will know that I've been critical of him at certain points of the season, but I think overall he's done a fantastic job. And I loved his comment when he first joined in the summer last year, when he said in an interview, "We won't play like Guardiola or De Zerbi because we are Sunderland and I'm Régis Lebris." And obviously the Frank Sinatra "My Way" was played countless times on the reels on social media. And I think, as annoying as it has been for us fans watching at times, he certainly did do it his way, didn't he?
Yeah, and to give him credit, I think in the playoffs, he did make changes in the games that did make a big difference, like tactical changes and substitutions that actually turned the game. Also, potentially, the fact that even though, against Coventry, especially the second leg, we were outplayed. We came at the end, we were the stronger team, and in the final against Sheffield United as well. And I do wonder whether taking the foot off the gas at the end of the season and preparing the players to just have peak fitness for the playoffs might have actually made a bit of a difference there, and that might be a reason why we seem to have better fitness than Coventry and Sheffield United in the final. So yeah, he's done a brilliant job. I feel like his kind of mild-mannered approach, just kind of his calmness, probably helped as well with the players when it got to the playoff final. And when we were losing, having him at half time, probably not kind of panicking or screaming, but just kind of saying, calming the players down. Look, we're coming into the game. We've already beaten Sheffield United. We've got nothing to worry about. Just keep playing, doing your thing, and it probably rubbed off on the players. I do think, like I mentioned before, about the subs, and having someone like Lafay and Mayenda in the team, and we compared to what we had last year, especially going forward. For me, it's like the difference isn't the fact that we've got Labrie now, and previously we had, people like Michael Beale. It's just the quality of the players in the squad, where we went from having a squad that was, by the end of last season, what was actually relegation material with some of the injuries, to go into a squad that was a solid playoff team, and then with a bit of luck along the way in the finals, in the actual playoffs, we got over the line. But yeah, delighted for Labrie. Seems like he's an interesting character, isn't he? Really interesting character, and it's going to be good to see him on the touchline in the Premier League against Premier League managers.
You've actually put an image in my head there, because you mentioned Labrie and how calm he is and how calm he would have been at half time in the dressing room. For some reason, I just got like an image of Lee Johnson standing on the stool giving like a Shakespeare speech.
Yeah, talking like acronyms.
Yeah, pour more. Anyway, listen, gentlemen, very appreciative of your time today to record this second special episode. We'll be back on Sunday for the final one of the season in English, and I'm also doing a Spanish one as well, about 10 Spaniards and Latinos. So looking forward to that. Hope you have a wonderful summer, and let's see how we get on in the Premier League next season. How are the lads?
Cheers, Lee. How are the lads?